Hello everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith, and this is going to be rolling on Kickstarter for April 2020. Wow, you guys probably haven't heard those words in quite some time. To be totally honest, I have no idea why this segment fell off the rails. I really enjoyed doing it, actually, skimming through Kickstarter, checking out all the different projects that are there, and we're certainly in a different time frame in terms of individuals' expenses as well as free money to be able to actually go ahead and back Kickstarter. So take this entire video with a grain of salt to say that even if you can't financially back any of these projects, hopefully this just entertains you from the value of taking a look at some of the different games that are available on Kickstarter, knowing full well that mainly Kickstarter has slowed down from what we've seen in prior years. Most of the stuff coming out now is the odd one that is super large, but you can definitely tell volume-wise, it's the industry has kind of contracted a little bit based on what's been going on, and it's probably out of a just concern in general for how long a game may particularly take to actually be developed and finally shipped off, and how much all of this COVID-19 situation we're all dealing with, and hopefully hoping by staying home, is going to impact all these Kickstarters, because there definitely is impacts logistically all over the place involved with them. So long story short, all you guys are aware of that kind of stuff, and I do not want to kind of go over all those items in this video, but I thought, you know what, even though the focus these days isn't on backing Kickstarters, that's not the main goal. We want to see everybody healthy, and we want to be able to get back to a time when we can actually socially connect with everybody again. And so we do want to see this thing pass, but I thought I would go ahead and kickstart this whole thing again. Because it's been so long, and it's been kind of ridiculous. I think it's like 5-6 months since I did one of these videos. So the purpose of this video, as always with all of these rolling on Kickstarter videos, this is literally me just going to Kickstarter, ripping through the games that are on Kickstarter, and just seeing what kind of catches my attention. And honestly, there's a number of games I'm going to miss as I go through this, not because I don't want to cover them or talk about them, but because I can't actually talk or speak to all of them, or this video would be crazy long. But there's going to be a number that you guys are really invested in, really excited about. Just because I don't mention them here doesn't mean they're not good options. Please let me know in the comments below which ones that I don't mention are definitely worth considering for the solo community. Other people that come to this video will be able to digest that there. So Tales for the Loop, the board game, if you're not familiar with anything about this, I actually have on my shelf right now in my office the Tales from the Loop role-playing game book. Now, I haven't actually dived deep into the role-playing experience yet, but I have skimmed through and dived through the actual book itself. The world in which this game is set is extremely cool. It has a very interesting vibe to it, and if you're into playing a role-playing game, yes, actually solo, which is pretty wild to say, there's a number of different resources that you can find in order to be able to play an RPG in a solo capacity. Some of them have decks of cards that you can actually print out, and you'll be able to use those to help you make those decisions when they have forks in the road in terms of how things are going to go on, basically controlling the GM aspect of an RPG. But I'm not here to talk about how that works on the solo front, but I do want to make mention of the fact that this game right here, Tales from the Loop, can be played solo. So from that point, being that it is a cooperative board game, it's already worth looking into. It's very successful. It's got $276,000 Canadian. Again, I am Canadian, so you're going to be seeing a lot of that. But if you want to see different currencies, I'll pop those up on the screen. So as we go through here, you're going to see like really interesting artwork. And this is one of the things that really jumped at me with the RPG was the world itself just looks so unique and very cool. And it almost has kind of a more modernized Scythe kind of feel to it, I guess, is the best way to describe it. But long story short, they're making an actual board game out of this. And if you know, there is a TV series as well, and I haven't checked out the TV series. So this is kind of coming out at a really opportune time, because not only can people digest the content of this world through an RPG, they can also digest it through a TV show, and now they got a board game coming. I think they pinned that timing perfectly, because the interest level is probably at its peak for this content. So if you're looking for a board game that's going to tie into something you could potentially watch on TV or experience through the RPG, then this might be the ticket if you've been looking for something in the board game world or realm. So going through here, I'm not going to speak to all the specifics of what they're going to include in all this Kickstarter, but I'm just going to rip through here and show you some pictures, some of the cool things that I saw as I went through. Again, a lot of these miniatures are really interesting, and they seem to nail exactly the way they look, even in the artwork, as you can see right here, and the artwork that we saw earlier. So if we can move through here a little bit, they do have a gameplay video that you can check out, so that's always good. They have the link to the print and play files. That's also extremely handy for anybody that actually wants to try this thing. And of course, because we're all stuck inside and we have a little more free time than we maybe normally would have, print and play is a good and valuable option at this point to explore. Something that I don't honestly give it as much credit as it probably deserves, just because I don't typically have the time to dive into print and plays as much as I used to when I didn't run the channel. But for those of you that are not kind of spending time content creating in that way, you might have the time to print and play and discover some really, really cool things, plus be able to try some games out before you even back them. Very good way to determine whether the game's for you. So long story short, this one is of interest to me. I have my eye on this, and I'm going to continue to keep my eye on this as it goes along. Now, I didn't tell you how long I had left, but it showed up on the screen. Yeah, 17 days. So as of this recording right now, and I'm recording on April the 19th, it's Sunday, 17 days to go, so you're going to have lots of time to kind of go through this and determine whether it's for you. The videos are here. You can check them out. This would have been a cool one, and definitely one of interest for me to actually try to show you guys as a Kickstarter preview. I didn't even know this thing was hitting. It just kind of came out of nowhere, and when I saw it, I was like, oh, I've got the RPG to this, and I'm interested in checking out the TV show and stuff like that because of it. But again, you've got things here like Alien, of course, through Nemesis. There's a connection there with Free League. Like that's also a really, really cool role-playing game as well. I don't have the book to this one yet, but I would love to have it. Forbidden Lands, I do actually have this one as well. I don't have all these, not this one here, but there's a number of them. I do have this one as well. So actually, surprisingly, I do have quite a few of them. But again, my time in order to dive into RPGs is pretty limited, but being that this is a board game, hey, that gives me the opportunity to potentially get into this. And I'm pretty sure you'd have to be living under a rock to not have heard of Frosthaven, Gloomhaven, and that whole thing. Look at how many backers are part of this thing. It's literally insane. And this is a big time game in terms of the size of this thing. 54,000 backers, and there's still 12 days to go. I envisioned it to be successful. I knew it was going to be successful. It's also coming out during a window of time that's also very tough. And I think Isaac and the team realizes that, being that not everyone can necessarily afford this thing. However, the bonus being that there is an allowance here, like most Kickstarters, to jump in at the dollar pledge level, which is just enough to get you into the pledge manager. So again, you're going to have a number of people here that know maybe in the moment they can't actually afford that value of this game. But that's okay. You can pay just a single $1 US or $2 Canadian, and you're in. You're in the pledge manager, and once it releases, you'll have a lot more time to save towards it. So you could put $10 aside every so often to be able to pull this thing through. And honestly, from what I've seen, and you can check out my channel, I put together a Kickstarter preview series, which again used all prototype components. So a lot of that stuff is going to be amped up in terms of how it looks. But one of the things I was really impressed with Frosthaven was the fact that they were moving towards the narrative app and tying that in with Foreteller. And that was another video that I put out, because one of the biggest weakness points for me with Gloomhaven the writing for Gloomhaven wasn't phenomenal. It was okay. But what kind of dropped it down a notch was that you have this game that's so immersive and so huge and such a giant campaign, but to me it deserved to have some type of voice acting or something like that behind it the first time out. But I understand that being that it was a one individual running the show behind this thing, and stuff like that, and then one artist, that it's very tough to try to do that the first time through. They were just hoping that it would be a success, and Gloomhaven was certainly a success. And now they've got that success, they're rolling into Frosthaven, they're jumping in kind of all out, and they're kind of sitting there going, how can we really make this the best experience possible? And when I saw the prototype of the map itself, mixed with the fact they're going with the Foreteller app for already released content for Gloomhaven, which you can pick up in the app like right now from scenarios 1 to 51, I believe. I've got them already, and soon when they release 52 and onwards, they're giving that to people that pick up 1 to 51 for free. So basically you get for one payment the entire scheme of Gloomhaven, and you can enjoy that content before Frosthaven even arrives in 2021. So again, the Foreteller app does a fantastic job of upping the immersion level to the 9s. And they're doing it for a number of different games, and they're probably targeting certain games that are narrative heavy driven games, and they're doing a really good job. I'm very impressed. So the thing with Frosthaven that really stuck out to me when I got the prototype was the fact that you really actually are in control of the town itself, and that was cool. One thing I found that was another weakness of Gloomhaven was the fact that the in-between game really just came down to, hey, here's a bunch of characters, and you have your character. It had a great system in terms of retiring your characters. I like that. But what bothered me about it was that the only thing that mattered in between the scenarios wasn't even the focus on the story. It was more the focus of when am I going to be able to retire my character and get the next one. Like, that seemed to be the overall driver of the soul of the game, was like, what is the next unlock? And to me, that should be an exciting part of it. That'll never be stripped away and considered a lesser part. But I kind of wanted there to be more meat in the middle, in between scenarios, because the game itself was fantastic. But again, in between the game, it was kind of wishy-washy a little bit. So what he's done is he's gone ahead and he's added a lot of things to beef up that in-between game. He started to add things into the loot deck, like different types of resources that you can use essentially, and you can spend those resources inside the city to not only kind of craft different potions, you can craft weapons, you can build up the city itself in order to give you more options to do in between the game. So again, you're going from, I'm just a mercenary in Gloomhaven controlling my single character and my only job is to try to get the heck out of here and be happy and kind of walk off into the sunlight, and then a new character comes over and jumps into the storyline. This one is more about, no, I'm here to stay in Frosthaven, and I actually have a job to do here, and I really want to see this town flourish and actually grow. Now, that's not to say that the characters you're going to control in Frosthaven won't retire, because I believe, I don't know 100%, but I'm pretty sure that mechanic of retiring them and seeing them disappear and new ones coming out is going to stick around. But still, it's just the idea behind it, the feeling you get when you're playing the game. It just adds more to it. It makes you want to play it more. So I was really impressed by that. And you can see right here, there's the app that I was talking about being added into the fray. So I'm going to tell you this right now. For the cost that you pay on Kickstarter for Frosthaven, this is, again, same as Gloomhaven, and now even more so. In my opinion, this is still the best bang for buck game you can possibly put your money towards in terms of how much content you get for the dollars you spend. There's nothing else in the industry that will give you as much gameplay time and as much enjoyment with your dollar than this. The interesting part is now that they've added more stuff into the equation, you've got things like the app, you can pay a little extra money, and it just kind of beefs up your immersion level like I was talking about already. So I recommend it just simply because I love the Foreteller app and I've already played Gloomhaven with it. And it honestly, it doesn't matter how many times I've restarted that campaign or ripped through multiple campaigns going at the same time, because I've actually printed off multiple maps of the Gloomhaven world and cut out different things instead of using the reprint thing and the sticker. And I've got like 2 or 3 world maps going at the same time. It's a little bit bananas, but I'm literally kind of bouncing between different campaigns, whether it's solo, with friends, whatever. I enjoy the game a lot. So this is one that, even though it came out, in some people's minds at the worst possible time, because it's a big game, it's really, really costly, it's obviously successful. It doesn't matter. People are kind of churning and yearning for this kind of stuff right now because of this isolation situation we're all in. And I think these are the kind of games people want right now. They're going like, I want something that's going to completely pull me out of reality and into another world that I can just focus in for quite a long time. This is it. And at the end of the day, you can always just go to your store, local store, and stuff like that. I'm sure they're doing like curbside pickup like my local store, or you can go online and order it to avoid contact with other people, which is the best case scenario, and be able to get a copy of Gloomhaven up front and just play that, enjoy that, and then get ready for Frosthaven, right? So again, at the end of the day, it's $1 to get in. It's worth having the $1 to be in there so that you make sure that when things clear up for you, and stuff like that, because I do realize, like I mentioned earlier on, this is a really weird time frame, and I do feel really bad for a lot of people that have lost their jobs and things like this. So these types of videos used to be really easy to create because it was like, hey, look, check out these cool games, you can back them, you can spend your money on them. And now there's this like cloud of uncertainty around some people watching this video, and I go like, I realize that it's not easy, and I do realize the fact that like the ability to buy games now has diminished a bit, right? It's cool to see that this particular Kickstarter has imploded and exploded and been very successful, right? Because there's still people, there's a large majority of people that are still employed and stuff like this, but there's also a large majority of people that have lost their jobs. And so I don't want to seem calloused in that way, right? So first off, again, long story short, if you have lost your job, you're watching this video and you're really upset that you can't get on the bandwagon for some of these games, you know, go for the dollar option, right? Give yourself the opportunity to get it later on. If you're really interested in the game, don't commit yourself in advance, right? If you're uncertain about your future, you have more priorities going on in your life than you do board games. So don't listen to me about what you know, what looks cool on the screen here. Focus more about what your actual priorities are, because that's what matters. So this is pretty much Frosthaven. There's not much more to say about it because honestly, like, it's a massive game. Everyone knows about it. This is not a surprise. It's huge. It's very successful. And again, it's going to come to retail. So there's the other option too of just saying, hey, I don't need this right now. I can pick this up when it hits retail in the future, and that's good enough for me. That's perfect. That might be actually the best option for you. So that is going to be Frosthaven. Let's head on to the next one. Next one we got here is Wolfenstein, the board game. Now, I'm going to tell you this straight up right now. I know very little about this one, and one of the reasons that I am not as amped up about this one as I was Frosthaven is because mainly I just received Wraithbuster's Project Vril, and so I've already got a game recently that kind of fills this vibe, this void in my collection. And so when I look at this as another of the same type of game. Now I realize 100% that the game is different, but timing wise it's poor for me because I already have that other one. So now when I look at this one, I'm a little less interested. Now, if I didn't have Project Vril already, I would probably be thinking, hey, this could be something that's interesting, something I don't have in my collection. Another, it's going to be another dungeon crawler-esque style game. Could be interesting and stuff like this, but for me personally, I probably won't be backing this one. And again, it has nothing to do with the quality of the game or anything like that. It's just simply that I already got this thing covered in my collection. For you, you may not have something along these lines, or maybe you're just a massive Wolfenstein fan. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm a huge fan of those video games from back in the day too, and I love them. But again, sometimes the IP does not drag you into an automatic buy. It just means that the game has a little bit more pull on you, and you have to make that final choice as to whether or not it's going to drag you in by the heels. So long story short, I can't really talk to specifics on this one, but I will say personally that I'm not going to be backing this one. I might back for $1 just so I have the ability to stay in tabs, and I do that sometimes as well. Just like I mentioned in the Frosthaven video that you can do that if you're in a financial trouble spot. I still do that just to have the availability to see updates on projects. It's a really, really good thing to do on the ones you're interested in, right? So it's also nice to see rulebooks, of course, with any Kickstarter. Anytime that they've got the rulebook there, you can actually check it out. I really appreciate that because sometimes games will come out, they look really great, they have a great IP attached to them, and you go, great, wonderful, but like I don't care what you have to say about your own game because you're going to say it's great. I want to see the rulebook so I can actually see if the game, seems interesting, in terms of its system of how it works. So it's nice to see that they have the full, PDF here that you can actually click on, check out, right? So you can dive into one of these to get an idea as to like how the game actually plays. And they got a mission book here. Here's a structure of one of the missions, for instance, and stuff like this. But again, I look at this and I say, like, I just played a game, and that's the one I mentioned, Wraithbuster's Project Vril, that fits this mold already. Like, I don't even have to dig too deep into this game, and I can already tell I've already got this angle covered, for now anyway. So I don't think I'll be as excited with this one as some others watching this video might be. But I can tell you right now, if you're into the minis and you're a fan of Wolfenstein, you're probably going to jump on the train just because of that connection to the cool IP. So, and there's nothing wrong with that either. Now, this next project is absolutely not a solo game. I'm not even going to give it that long of a talk because straight up, you cannot play this thing solo. Someone might be able to create a solo variant for it. That's possible, but I'm just a really big Blood Rage fan. I'm a really big Rising Sun fan. I really like that, dudes on a map strategy, type game. I love that. And, this one is going to fall right into that same bucket, but it's one that I'm definitely going to go after because I love the theme. I have nothing around this type of theme really in my collection right now, so it's something that automatically kind of grabs me. Plus, when they say that it's kind of in the same series of games as those other two, and I already love those other ones, I'm sure I'm going to enjoy this one. So this one's more from the multiplayer aspect, that at some point in time in the future when we're all able to get back together with friends and family, that a multiplayer game might be an option. But in terms of the channel and what I would recommend for solo play, don't pick this one up for solo play. The next one here is the Ratcatcher solo adventure board game. This is an interesting one. It looks like they just barely got over their funding goal, which is good because that means it's actually going to be created. And honestly, the first thing I thought of when I looked at this, I'm not even joking you, and I hope this doesn't have any negative connotations whatsoever, because it's not intended to sound like that. But the first thing I thought of when I saw this thing was I immediately thought of Unbroken. Like, I don't know what it was about the vibe or the, and it's not the artwork. It's just like that quick solo play game with a tight timeline, cards, small footprint on the table. Like, it has that vibe 100%. Now, I don't know enough about the gameplay to specify anything further. I'm going to have to dive into this a little bit more to find out if it's something that interests me or not. And it certainly doesn't look like it's a copy of. So again, as I mentioned, I'm not trying to say this is a game that's like a reprint of that. And Unbroken had a lot of major delivery issues. A lot of people very frustrated. So again, not trying to essentially compare these two things together, because I think that would be actually pretty rude. because and again, I feel really bad for the Unbroken designer, Artem, I believe his name is, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. He's a great guy, and honestly, the Golden Bell, or whoever the heck it was that did the distribution for his game, like, absolutely botched that whole thing so badly that I really hope he gets the developer, or the designer, I should say, gets another chance in the future to kind of like recoup his reputation a little bit, because I don't think it got massively damaged because people didn't point their fingers directly at him. But I think a portion of people that are uninformed probably, pointed their fingers directly at him and basically said, "You are the cause of this. How dare you pick them?" But I can tell you right now, he's probably learned a very valuable lesson through that, insanity of the Unbroken delivery system, or delivery, goof that happened, and the goof that continues to this day, probably. So, long story short, this is one that I want to dive into a little bit further. It looks interesting from a solo play perspective. Again, like I said, small footprint on the table, so that automatically intrigues me. It's only going to take 30 minutes to play, I'm assuming, once you know the rules, so that's intriguing on its own. So there's videos here you can check out and stuff like that. I highly recommend that you check out playthroughs for Kickstarter. If you ever see reviews for Kickstarter, I would highly recommend you avoid those. Reviews really don't belong on Kickstarters. Like, they just don't. You can't review a prototype that's not fully developed and then give it an actual review. Like, it's just, nothing about that lines up. The game's not complete and you're only seeing a snippet of the gameplay. You can't really give a full circle review that's actually legitimate in a Kickstarter. So I would avoid reviews because they don't actually give you any information besides just kind of telling you this is good or this is bad, generically, at a very high level. But I would actually stick to the playthroughs, because you're going to be able to actually see the game played, and something will click with you when you watch a playthrough. You'll sit there and feel it inside and go, this looks fun, this looks entertaining. Or you'll sit there and say, this looks horribly boring. So this is all of the different content you can potentially get inside of this one. It looks interesting. I'm actually really intrigued with it. So I'm probably gonna back this one from the standpoint of, like, cost-wise, it's probably not that expensive. It's probably pretty cheap. Actually, that's pretty. I'm surprised it's $62. It's actually kind of expensive for such a small game. And again, I say small game in terms of footprint, but maybe there's a bigger. It doesn't look that big, but yeah, that's a decent price for what you're getting here. So I'll have to dive into that one. I don't know if I can justify the cost on that one for what you're actually getting here. Unless I missed the stretch goal section, there's a whole bunch of stuff to throw in on top of it, but intrigued to say the least. There is some unlock goals here. Okay, so there is some extra stuff, but it looks like mostly there's component upgrades in here and a couple pieces of additional content, like some cards, but I don't know. That's a tough one. That is a tough one. And here's, oh, okay, here we go. Here's some more content related stuff. Yeah. Okay, interesting. All right, well, it's one to look at for sure. Next up, we have Cloudspire, Ankar's Plunder, and the series reprint. Now, this one is something solo gamers have been waiting for a while, because there's a bunch of people that wanted to get Cloudspire, but Chip Theory Games is known for making super high quality games to the point where they weigh a lot. One of the biggest, issues I think with them is that it's a pro and a con. I love their games. They design fantastic games. I honestly haven't hit a dud yet. Like, Cloudspire is fantastic. Too Many Bones is fantastic. Hoplomachus is fantastic. Like, I've been literally covering their games since and purchasing their games since before the channel even was created. And then as the channel got created and these games continued to come out, I just got wowed by every single one of them. They come out, and the effort they put into it's like off the charts. So what I say in terms of a negative this way is that I think some people won't back, or sorry, I shouldn't say won't back, but they won't purchase directly from Chip Theory Games due to the cost that comes along with the weight of what they buy. So in other words, if you want like the all-in Cloudspire or the all-in Too Many Bones, the weight of the product is actually pretty hefty, which obviously increases the shipping cost to pretty high numbers for certain locations in the world. So a lot of people wait for these types of Kickstarters to land from Chip Theory Games because they know they can bundle stuff together. So honestly, this is a great window of time, again, to get into a system of games that they have some fantastic options. So if you just want to get into the Pledge Manager, it's $5, and I highly recommend at least that, because then from there, you know, you can start to bundle these purchases together, save yourself some money on delivery, get the stuff all at the same time. Don't break up all your purchases and pay extra, all that kind of stuff. You're still giving the dollar value to them for their actual product they're delivering on Kickstarter, but you're not hurting yourself in terms of buying Too Many Bones, you know, separately from their store and then purchasing Cloudspire from their Kickstarter and all that stuff. I believe they are going to allow individuals to buy multiple options inside their Kickstarter. We'll see. I shouldn't state for sure that that's a fact, but I've seen that at times where they've allowed people to pick up content from their other prior Kickstarters in a Pledge Manager. So you might get something from Too Many Bones showing up in the Cloudspire Pledge Manager. And I'm pretty sure that's going to be the case. So there's an FAQ here. I wouldn't be surprised if it's probably answered right in here. And I remember from past ones that you can. Let's see here. Let's actually see whether or not that mentions it, because that'd be perfect. So run short campaign. Stretch goals. It may not. I mean, it has the, you know, whether you'll get access. Update pack, difference between all the books. Now, if I'm missing it here, I might be blind, but... Oh, here we go. Haha, look at that. First thing, absolutely. Just pledge for the $5 or more and either add the funds for the products you would like to manually add or add them, blah, blah, blah. So yes, you can definitely get anything from CTG during their Kickstarters. And this is kind of why I was kind of alluding to this, is like, this is the best way to do it. It honestly is. If you're looking to pick up any of their content, get it through their Kickstarter to save yourself the grief of the cost on the delivery side of things. So anyway, long story short, I've got videos on how to play Cloudspire. I've got a playthrough of it on the channel. Highly recommend checking out. If you're interested in any of the Too Many Bones contents, I've got multiple playthroughs of that game. I'm still haven't received a Splice and Dice yet. I'm really waiting for that to show up. That'll be exciting. I also gave Cloudspire my best strategy game of 2019 award, which was totally and 100% deserved. There was nothing else that came out strategy-wise in 2019 that even came close to the level of strategy that you can find in Cloudspire. Like, there are lots of strategy games, but this one was just like the scale and the scope of it, and the other thing that really grabbed me was the attention to solo play. Is just something that, like, they absolutely bar none destroy so many other I shouldn't say publishers, but game creators in our industry, from the standpoint of focusing solely on solo play and creating like books directly for us, which I think is amazing, because typically solo rules can be found at the back of rule books, pegged in there last second, built later on, not built from the ground up, all that kind of stuff. They literally built booklets that were in there from day one, and I imagine during their development, if I remember correctly, they were actually playing this game in solo fashion to determine, you know, some of the structure of how the game would work as well. So this was all built from the ground up. It's just a fantastic game. So long story short, if you're looking for a strategy game that has a ton of life, a ton of theme, feel, and is very well put together, it is certainly a tick up on the medium-heavy scale, I would say, for sure. It could even tick into the heavy scale for certain people that aren't as familiar with learning games such as this. But for solo players that play solo games already and are just used to the hobby board game in general, you know, you could probably, this is probably more of a medium to medium heavy rating in terms of like how heavy it's going to be for you to consume and play the game. But anyway, long story short, that's Cloudspire. They're doing very, very well. They've only got 4 days to go. So by the time this video comes out, you'll still have a couple days. Like I said before, if you want to just get in on the Pledge Manager, so you have the option to pick up other stuff, definitely get that $5 pledge to save yourself some grief and also get a little bit of a discount on shipping. Next up, we've got Veilwraith, a solo fantasy quest game. And if you're familiar with Tristan Hall created a number of very well-known solo games. So I'll just show you a couple of those right now. Veilwraith being the most recent one, 1565. Shadows of Kilforth, which is the probably most recently delivered game from him. Lifeform, Gloom of Kilforth, and really it was Gloom of Kilforth, the original. Really his very first Kickstarter is where my eyes kind of gravitated to his type of games, because I really enjoyed what he put together with that one, being that the development window on that was actually quite long. So there was really a lot behind what it was before it actually even hit Kickstarter. And then, of course, in subsequent reprints, things got even better. And then now you've got the Shadows of Kilforth, which is the most recent version. I recently unboxed it on the channel. So if you want to check out playthroughs of Gloom of Kilforth or unboxings for any of that stuff, I've got them all as well. Veilwraith here is one that I will honestly admit is the one that I know probably the least about. I'm very interested and intrigued in it because the second you see this in the title, it makes me go, great, this is a game that's built strictly for solo gamers. So that obviously is going to pull my interest even more. But in terms of the actual subject matter of the game and stuff like this, I need to honestly do a little more research as to whether or not this is something that's going to intrigue me. But as a solo gamer, this is one you need to do your research on, because this could land exactly in the camp of type of games you want to have. And so I won't be able to speak to the gameplay of this one as it's that new and I don't know enough about it to be able to do that and give it justice. But I will say one thing is that at a surface level, in terms of the artwork for Veilwraith, it's going to follow, I believe, the same type of level of quality that you can expect from Gloom of Kilforth, Shadows of Kilforth. In terms of its art style, it's just phenomenal. Like, the art style in the games are beautiful. I went through the latest Shadows of Kilforth unboxing, and every single time I've unboxed one of his games, I literally just want to stare at the artwork. I want to open the box and just go through the cards. So it's a really, really engrossing world that they've created. And that's something that kind of brings me back to wanting to play it more. It's just that it's so vibrant in terms of its artwork that you look at it and you just kind of get lost in it. And the gameplay is fantastic. So for this one, again, it's going to be very different. This is a totally different experience outside of the games that I just mentioned that I'm more familiar with and have a lot more experience with. But I'm very curious to find out more about this one, and I can see there's a lot of that black and white hue throughout this thing. So one thing I'm kind of curious about off the hop after looking at this was whether or not that was going to be the norm for the entirety of the game. It looks like it is going to be that way. It also mentions this campaign is going to have no stretch goals, and the multiplayer option here, being that it's solo friendly, it's going to be intended for solo gamers. So you can technically do a multiplayer option, it appears, but it's mainly pointed towards a solo gamer. So ripping on down through here, you're going to see some examples of artwork, and this is kind of where you get to the gameplay. So you can like level up memories. You've got a broken world that you're going to explore. There's addictive card play going on, and again, if you know Gloom of Kilforth, all about card play. Bring peace to the Deja, troubled souls trapped by the veil. We've got all kinds of stuff, encounters and foes. It plays in 30 to 40 minutes, so that's actually kind of cool. More players can join in with their own copy game, so that's how the multiplayer works. But one thing I'm noticing is this. I guess if you're familiar with the time it takes to play solo games, that's pretty low. And that's, if I remember correctly, that's quite a bit lower than Gloom of Kilforth and Shadows of Kilforth, which typically take about an hour to an hour and a half probably to finish. So 30 to 40 minutes is a great window. That's really nice, because you can really, once you play that first couple of games to get the rules wrapped around you, you'll be able to punch through those games pretty fast. So that's nice. I like games where you can kind of get something done in under an hour. So that's pretty huge. And again, cost of this thing is going to be on the lower end as compared to something like Gloom of Kilforth or Shadows of Kilforth. And it appears that the playmat's coming back. One thing I will say about Shadows that I just received was the playmat was like jaw-droppingly gorgeous, because again, the artwork's so well done that when they went ahead and created a playmat for the game, I was just like, I have to have this. And it really does look nice. So definitely recommend, if you're going to dive into this thing, just for the immersion factor alone, definitely grab the playmat. It's not only going to help you kind of organize things, but it just looks so good. I've always been a fan of playmats. I'm kind of a sucker for them as soon as they show up on games. If it has a usable functionality on top of it looking good, then I'm really, really interested in it, especially for keeping things organized. So this kind of thing just proves that they've got spots for everything. And you can do this on your own, but I don't know, there's just something about it that just really pulls you in. So it looks like a beautiful game. You could actually check out a link right here if you want to learn more about the rules. So again, always appreciate to see, or I'm always willing to point out and very appreciative to see rule books thrown on the Kickstarter page for everyone to dive into, so they don't have to guess and just go by the videos only. But there are teaser videos here that you can check out, setup videos here, gameplay videos, so you'll have enough that you'll be able to figure out whether or not this thing lands in your wheelhouse. So that is Veilwraith, a solo fantasy quest game. It's got over 1,000 backers 10 days ago. This is one that I'm certainly going to keep my eye on. Next Kickstarter on the list is Final Girl, coming from Van Ryder Games. It's an immersive solitaire horror board gaming experience. It's got over 80,000 Canadian from a $70,000 goal, or in US funds, 56 of 50. So it's on the way up, and it just landed today. So it's only been up there for a few hours as of this recording. It's already doing very, very well out of the gates. And I think a lot of people are interested in it here, at least in my community, because of this right here. It's immersive, it's solitaire, and that is the only way to play this one. The other thing that's really cool about it is the fact that it's small footprint, and the other thing that I'm really excited to announce is the fact that I will be doing a Kickstarter preview playthrough on the channel to give you an idea as to how this one actually plays. So if you've been wondering whether or not this is one you'd like to pick up, and you've been hearing about it, you'll be able to check out my playthrough video, and hopefully that'll help you make an informed decision on whether or not it's something that lines up for you. But you have all these different movie episodes, essentially, of different scenarios, which you can mix and match. It's very modular, very cool that way. And you have very thematic decisions to make as you try to basically survive and also take down the horror that is coming after you. So there's going to be a number of different enemies you'll have to deal with, and a number of different final girls that you can choose from. So as it mentions right here, you can choose your killer. You can have Hans here as an example, and you've got your area or location like the Creech Manor, and you'll be moving your meeple in around this manor here, dealing with all kinds of things, seeing events and seeing items, and terror cards are coming up as you try to fight your way past this killer who's coming after you. So the game includes core box-wise this content right here. Again, I'll have a lot more information when I get to my playthrough, but they consider them feature films or movies, I guess, because they're kind of playing off of that horror aspect that we all know what love, that campy horror theme. But also they've got like the Poltergeist in there as well, and a bunch of others. So it's pretty cool. You can see here you got the campground and the different areas where your meeple can potentially sit and move around the campground. But what I really like about this is that, again, they optionally added miniatures in, so you don't have to go after the miniatures, but if you really want to kind of bump things up and make it a little bit more immersive on the table, then you can go the miniature route, which is pretty cool. So I'll just kind of skim through this. You can see a little bit more of each of the different major episodes in this one, and the miniatures at the bottom. So you can pick them up individually. Like, you don't have to get all of them. You can just be like, I really like this particular vibe. This is the one I want to go after, and that's good enough. Or you can say, I want all of them, so I can mix and match even more so. So here's a breakdown of the miniatures. Again, they're not going over and above with the miniatures. They're getting exactly what you need to play the game, and that's pretty much it, which is great because it keeps the cost down for individuals that want to back. So again, of course, being that this game is going to, it says it ends in only one of two ways. Either you're going to be killed or you are going to kill the killer. So obviously you're hoping for the latter there. Although I read those in reverse order. So we got pledge levels here. Again, it's not a very expensive game if you're just going after one. If you want double, it actually starts to save you money the more of them you add in, which is kind of cool. And then if you go all the way to the very, very end, then it says it includes a Final Girl core components box featuring all 4 feature films, and you've got the miniatures box in there as well for like one final cost. They also are going to add a game mat, and I don't know if they have any pictures out on the Kickstarter just yet, but I'm kind of curious to see what that's going to look like. I always gravitate towards game mats because I'm a sucker for them, but that will be cool to see thematically how it looks and draws you in. And then you got your shipping charges down here. Now, in terms of when is this thing going to actually be shot out the door, it looks like it's for about midway through next year. But again, you can come at this from a number of different angles as a solo player. You can pick up just one and wait to see the other ones later on down the line, or you can say I want the whole thing, for a reduced rate. So this is going to be Final Girl. Again, I will talk much more about this on the channel in videos and playthroughs. You'll actually see it on the table, which will hopefully help you make a decision on it. But I definitely wanted to highlight this one because this one literally just came out before I was about to finalize my Rolling on Kickstarter video, so I definitely wanted to include it. And last but not least is a Blacklist Miniatures Fantasy Series 1. So this is essentially what they're doing here is a new line of detailed plastic miniatures, as it mentions up here. This is from the individuals that put together games like Street Masters, Hour of Need, Alter Quest, those types of games. And they use that modular deck system in a large majority of their games. This particular entry into Kickstarter is very different for them because it's not an actual game. It's literally the miniature. So what they're trying to do here, from my understanding, based on what I've read in the overview here, is they're trying to basically fill a void for some high quality, high detailed, already assembled miniatures. So you can basically use them in any game. They want to basically cover it. So think of Reaper Bones, I guess, would be the best comparison, or they just have lineups of miniatures that you can just go pick up. And honestly, like when I played Gloomhaven and did a playthrough, I needed rats, for instance. There was no rats inside of the box in Gloomhaven, but I wanted them for the ability to like summon rats around the board for some weird reason, so I could have my summons actually be matched with a miniature. So this is, I like proxying that kind of stuff in. So what they're doing here is basically saying, yeah, if you're interested in particular types of creatures or characters, you can come after this Kickstarter, and there you go. You can get some giant rats that you can actually use in a game like Gloomhaven. So you can basically have a bucket of miniatures that actually doesn't belong in a particular game, so you don't have to worry about if you ever sell the game, the miniatures are gone too. You got that bucket of miniatures, and anytime you need a particular type of miniature, you just reach in there, grab it, and throw it into whatever game you're playing. So I do like that idea. The only thing that's going to be a trouble spot probably for them is that there's other companies already doing this and already been doing it for quite some time. So they're up against it in terms of competition, because there's already other individuals doing this type of work. But they're going to come with their own style, and they're going to come with their own look and their own quality level here on the miniature. So it's going to be a decision that comes down to the people as to, is this the best choice for them? So for me as a solo gamer, they definitely have leaned their products towards solo games. So even though this isn't technically a solo in quotes game, it is something that would actually immerse you more into your solo experience and would be a benefit to you. So that's the reason why I'm showing it off, because I do truly think it is kind of cool. And of course, if you want things like this is really cool, like door packs and stuff like this, scenery packs for certain things you want to replace in games that are just standard tokens, that's awesome. So long story short, it looks like you can actually, I didn't actually know that. I think you can actually pick up some stuff or maybe content in the Pledge Manager specific to some other games too. I did not see that the first time through. Interesting. Okay, so that is it. They're at 100,000 Canadian, so US 73,000 or so, and there's 15 days to go, so there's lots of time to take a look through this and see if any of these miniatures are ones you'd like to pick up generically to have to spread across any of the games that you play solo. But that's going to do it. I think that's going to wrap up rolling on Kickstarter for April. Now, normally if I'd have done this at the beginning of the month, I would have maybe done another one of these videos near the end of the month too. And of course, we didn't hit every single solo option out there. As I mentioned before, if I missed any, let me know in the comments below what the name of it is, all that kind of stuff, because I'd love to learn as much about some of the games on Kickstarter that I didn't run into when I went through it myself, as you guys hopefully learn through going through this video with me. And hopefully this stuff is informative. Again, I'm not reviewing here. I'm not telling you to purchase any of these. This is just us hanging out. We've got all the time in the world, being that we're all stuck inside for the most part, and doing our best to kind of make do with the current times. And hopefully this is entertaining in terms of just kind of walking through these things. You can get my thoughts on what I think about certain aspects of the hobby, as well as the different games we see on Kickstarter. I still expect there to be good options out there for May. I've got a couple games I know of that are going to hit Kickstarter as well, so that it should be an exciting time frame, and some are actually coming near the end of April too. So we'll cover some of the ones that kind of kick off at the tail end of April in May. So maybe we'll do the May, rolling on Kickstarter somewhere in the early to mid range of the month. So in about, a little less than a month's time or so we can kind of capture whatever happens at the end of this month. So, long story short, I am going to go get some rest. I really hope this was helpful and useful in pinpointing some projects that might be of interest to you. Really hope everyone out there stays safe. Stay at home as much as you possibly can, but make sure you go out, take a walk, and get some fresh air, because being trapped inside is not good health-wise for anybody. And I really hope everyone's taking care of themselves. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, keep on rolling solo.